Breakfast and brilliant ideas, coffee and conversation, we're serving up that and much more at IBJ Media's events. Join us at an upcoming event and kickstart your day with fresh ideas and new connections. Check out our event lineup and register now at ibj.com/RSVP.
This is the IBJ podcast for the week of Monday, March the 2nd, 2026, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Let's go back about 3 decades to the mid-1990s when Indianapolis businesswoman Christel Dehaan sold her company, Resort Condominiums International, for $825 million. She then focused much of her time on philanthropy, and it would take us about 10 minutes to give justice to all the ways she supported Central Indiana's arts community. Today, we're going to focus on Christel House International, Dehaan's global network of schools, with a mission to not only educate its low-income students, but to provide the necessary nutrition, health care, and career mentoring, even after graduation, to help them break the cycle of poverty. Dehaan established Christel House schools in Indianapolis, Mexico, South Africa, Jamaica, and India before her death in 2020. The network now is entering a new era of growth. David Harris, probably best known in Indianapolis as the founding CEO of education reform group The Mind Trust, became Christel House's president and CEO in 2024, succeeding former Indianapolis Mayor Bart Peterson. Harris soon established a new plan for expansion that calls for boosting Christel House's presence in countries where it already operates, while opening new schools in Colombia and Nepal. In this week's episode of the podcast, Harris discusses the challenges of continuing Christel House's mission without its founder, how it now finances its mission, the organization's process for establishing schools from scratch in new countries, and the expansion of a global program that's now helping students from 4 Indianapolis high schools succeed after graduation. Here's our conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast David Harris, President and CEO of Christel House International. David, thank you for making time to come to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to expect you to have amazing stamina in today's interview. I know that you are training for a marathon. I wanted to ask you about this first. Which marathon and when is it?
So I am doing the London Marathon on April 26th. Christel House has an affiliate in Europe that's solely about raising money for our work around the world. And over the last several years, the board chair of Christel House Europe, Lord Anthony St. John, and his son have alternated years of running this marathon. They are both very serious runners. Alex, his son, had actually once did 7 marathons in 7 days in the desert. But
That's great.
It is unbelievable. But this year, neither of them could do it. And so I volunteered, and I am a very poor substitute, certainly as in terms of the time that I'll get. I've never done a full marathon before. I've done a handful of half marathons, but very excited about it and have been training hard. I did my first 20-mile run last weekend. And so hopefully I'll be in a position to run this race and raise some money for Christel House so that we can serve even more kids around the world. So it's a fundraiser for us.
So it is a fundraiser.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that for the London especially, there's a big fundraising component.
Yes.
But for many different organizations.
Yes. Yeah. No, London has really prioritized giving spots to nonprofits to run in the race to raise money for their work.
I mean, does one simply join the London Marathon, or is this something where you mentioned, people who have, it sounds like they have titles. Like you can't just say, I want to do the London Marathon, or is it just that easy?
It's actually very hard to get into the London Marathon, but Christel House Europe has a spot. So we have a spot every year, and that's why we wanted to make sure it was used. And the person who is our board chair, Lord Anthony St. John, is a member of the House of Lords. Wonderful guy, a great champion of our work, and a great runner. And I keep telling him, sorry that I'm not going to get the same time that either you or your son had, but I guess the goal is not a time, it's to finish.
Do you have a goal?
In terms of time or in terms of raising money?
Yeah, if you're going to get that aggressive. I mean, do you have a goal in terms of time?
So my goal officially is to finish, because that's what I'm committing to the people who are supporting me. My personal goal is to get somewhere around 4 hours and 15 or 20 minutes, but really my goal is to finish.
Okay. Now, I know you're in your mid-50s. How are your knees still able to do this?
Well, so far so good. We'll see. I still haven't crossed the finish line, so I haven't had any knee issues. I will say I have been going to a physical therapist to help me with the little aches and pains that I'm getting along the way, and I actually engaged a coach who's been very helpful to help me understand what are the things that I need to do to prepare. And I would recommend a coach to anybody who's doing it the first time, because he's told me a lot of things that I haven't known.
Have you noticed your body changing at all?
Well, I have aches and pains that I didn't have before, but I have to say, overall, I feel great. Mm-hmm. And I feel a lot better than I normally do, because I just think I'm in better shape. I've lost some weight. And so, I think it's, as long as I can keep doing it, I feel good.
Well, God bless you. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
But we'll be rooting for you.
I appreciate it very much.
So let's go back in time a bit and touch on the history of Christel House International. Do you have a tidy summary of the creation of CHI and its mission?
Well, I can tell the founding story, because it really is a great story. Christel Dehaan, who I think most of your listeners will know, a fabulously successful businesswoman who sold RCI International, the company she co-founded with her husband in the early 90s, and was in a position to do work to help make the world a better place, which was what her commitment was. Got a call from a former colleague of RCI who lived in Mexico City and asked her if she would support an orphanage that he was a part of. And she said, well, I want to come down and see that orphanage. And she left saying, you know what, this is an amazing place, but what I want to do is I want to help these kids escape poverty for life. And that is how Christel House International was born. The first Christel House school was launched in Mexico City in 1998. That man who invited her down there is still the board chair of Christel House Mexico. And the model is really focused on helping kids escape poverty for life. So we do things different than the typical school model does. For starters, we're with our kids for 18 years or 19 years, depending on the country. We start in either preschool or kindergarten. We go through high school, and then we provide them with an additional 5 or 6 years of support after they graduate from high school to help them successfully navigate whatever their post-secondary education plans are, and to actually help them transition into the workforce. And we really consider ourselves done. We're never really done, but we're done when our kids enter the workforce in jobs that allow them to support themselves and their families. And then along the way, while they're in school, we're not just providing school, we're providing daily nutrition, we're providing health care, we're providing social services supports, we're providing supports to parents. And our schools around the world and here in Indianapolis are serving the most economically disadvantaged kids. But it looks very different in Indianapolis than it does in the countries that we work in around the world, because poverty looks very different. The United States has a basic standard of living that basically all people have. But that standard of living is not the same in Mexico and Jamaica and South Africa and India, the countries that we're currently operating in outside of the United States. We're serving kids who live on dirt floors, who have no running water, no electricity, no sewage, who kind of are in what are called informal settlements, so not houses or apartments, but kind of structures that the community just kind of builds. I was just in one of those homes in Mexico City Monday of this week, and it was very chilly that day, and everybody was freezing because there was no way to keep warm, because that is just kind of a makeshift home. Family, by the way, was amazing. They were just the loveliest people. They were so proud to welcome us into their home. They just couldn't have been more gracious. They gave us gifts when we left. But these are people who have no refrigeration, just for example. They get their water from a hose. And yet these kids that we're taking from these very, very challenging circumstances, if given the right supports that we provide and are with them for a long period of time, are becoming very successful, becoming teachers and doctors and working for management consulting firms. I just met an alum in Mexico City who's working for Amazon. And one of the things that this model shows is that when you make the kind of investment for a sustained period of time, and that sustained period of time is really important, we show that there's the same amount of talent in all of those kids as in any other group of kids. It's just that we're not, the countries where we're operating in, and just collectively as a world, we're not making the kinds of investments in those people that we need to make if we're going to allow them to develop their talents.
Right. So yeah, the first one opened in Mexico City in 1998. It was followed within 4 years by schools in Bangalore, India, Cape Town, South Africa, and then Christel House in Indianapolis.
Correct.
Maybe the easiest thing to do is probably take like a current inventory of where the schools are.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a shot at it without having anything in front of you? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, happy to do that. So we've got 4 schools here in Indianapolis. We've got 2 K-8 schools, a high school, and then we have our Doors schools, which are our adult high schools that are very similar to the Excel schools that Goodwill has, that are really terrific, provide an opportunity for adults to go back and get their high school degree. Those schools are innovation network schools in partnership with IPS, and one of them is a standalone charter. Our schools around the world, though, are all no-fee private schools. So we have a school in Mexico City. We have a school in Jamaica, a little town called Spanish Town just outside of Kingston. We've got a school in Cape Town in a community called Ottery. We've got a school in Bangalore, India. Have a school in Atul Nagar, India, which is kind of in the center of the country. And then we're in the process now of opening several new schools. So we're in an aggressive expansion phase.
Right. So currently I counted 9 schools. How many students is that?
So we serve about 6,500 students, including the students that we're providing support for in their post-high school graduation period.
So it's not just kids in the classroom. It's kids that have technically graduated, literally graduated,
right?
But you're still supporting them as they move forward.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you said 6,500?
Yes. And I should add, we are that program, what we call our college and careers program, where we provide the support. We've now, because we think that's such a key part of the work, we are now providing college and career support in 4 non-Christel House high schools for the first time. So we're doing that at both Lawrence Central and Lawrence North. We're doing that at Heron Riverside, and we are doing that at Irvington Community Charter School. So that's a new program. We've just started it.
Wow.
And part of the motivation behind that is we know how valuable that period is. It's almost always neglected. And just a statistic about our school here in Indianapolis, the state of Indiana produced some data a couple of years ago that showed the average earnings for graduates based on the public high school that they went to. And our graduates at Christel House Indianapolis have the second highest earning of any public high school in Marion County, and by far the highest earnings of schools that are serving kids from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. And we think there are a number of factors for that, but a big factor is that we're so intentional about helping them succeed in their post-secondary work and enter the workforce. And so we wanted more kids to have access to that.
Yeah, we were talking before the tape started rolling, or the digital tape started rolling. Our wives are both teachers.
Yes.
And mine teaches high school and public school. And it is amazing to me, how much work my wife continues to do with students who have graduated.
It's amazing.
Who are, not sure about the path to college, that there are a number of very opaque hoops you need to pass through to get to college, especially for somebody, from a low income background. And she is constantly answering questions from recent graduates. And, how do I do this? How do I do that? Is there a program that will help me do this? And so I can see where that kind of curriculum, post-secondary curriculum, would be really, really valuable.
Yeah. There's so many things that wouldn't seem at all to be a big issue for families that have social capital and have resources that can knock a family off the track towards completing school and getting a good job, that relatively minor support can actually make an enormous difference. So sometimes a kid just can't get access to the classes that he or she is taking.
Yeah, transportation.
Transportation.
I mean, we had a conversation with one of our previous students who just could not get to Ivy Tech.
Yeah.
Or, the bus wasn't running at the right times. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So we have part of this work, we have an emergency fund so that we can provide, if we need to get someone a bus pass or the ability to repair their car, we can do that. But a lot of times we also just work with things. We had a student once who was having a conflict with his coach at the university that he had a scholarship to and was at risk of losing his scholarship, which would have meant he couldn't have stayed in school. And so our coaches intervened and connected with this player and the coach and were able to work things out, and that student is still on track. And so things that parents that have capital and resources to do without thinking twice about it, our kids are getting from our coaches, of course, also providing support for their parents. So that but it's something we think needs to happen a lot more of, and that's why we're now expanding this into non-Christel House schools for the first time, and we'll continue to grow that program.
Okay. So these 9 schools that we previously were talking about, not the ones with the new programs. So these were all established before Christel Dehaan passed away?
Yes.
In 2020? Okay.
Correct. The last one started in 2020, but yes.
So, I mean, the identity of Christel House, starting with the name, the identity of the organization is so closely tied to its founder. I assume you would have some serious challenges continuing the mission without the founder. Is that accurate?
For sure. I mean, we've lost an enormous amount without having access to Christel. And as we've expanded into new countries, one of the things that we don't have are her relationships around the world that she can leverage. And she also was just someone who could pick up the phone and call anybody, and people responded when she asked for money. And there are all kinds of things that, of course, we miss every day. And she was such a great thinker. This focus on really transitioning kids out of poverty for life is revolutionary in education. That's not the way most schools think about it. And I think it's where we really need to move as a country and as a world. And you think differently about how you allocate your resources. If your goal is, I just want to help our kids do well on a standardized test versus I want to help our kids escape poverty for life. It's why we provide all of those additional supports. But I should also add, because Christel was Christel and was always thinking way ahead, she set up the organization so that it could continue to thrive even after she passed. Her goal was for this to continue in perpetuity. Her goal was that every school that she started or was started after she had moved on would continue in perpetuity. So we miss her. There are huge gaps that her absence have been very hard to fill. But at the same time, she was very wise in how she set up the organization so that we have the capacity and the resources to continue to support these schools ongoing.
Yeah. So here's where my expertise is really iffy. So hopefully you can talk me through this. So my understanding was that for the majority of that time between 1998 and 2020, she was personally funding the administrative costs of the organization so that any donations that you received could go directly to the schools.
Exactly.
Is that how that worked?
Exactly.
Okay. And then she established a foundation, and this might have been what you were referring to before, to help pay for Christel House International's overhead expenses.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And the schools.
And the school. Okay. Right. Oh, so it's not just administrative expenses. It's also for the operations of the school.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is Endless Success Foundation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we had a conversation with Bart Peterson about it, I'll bring it back in. This is going to ring a bell for some people who've listened to the podcast for a while, because we did an episode of the podcast where Christel's home, which is known as Linden House on the near northwest side of Indianapolis, was sold to Restoration Hardware in September 2022 for $14.5 million. And that money, including the money from the sale of her art and other furnishings, that also went into the foundation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So here's the bajillion-dollar question. How large is the foundation?
So the exact size of the endowment fluctuates because the stock market fluctuates, and there's a team that does a fabulous job of investing those dollars. But I think people get a general sense of the kind of resources behind this based on what Christel sold her company for, which was close to $1 billion. And she was really dedicated to continuing to support this work in perpetuity. So we're in a very good financial position. But at the same time, we're committed to growing even more schools beyond just what her resources would provide. So we're also very aggressively raising funds to support this work because we want to be able to serve even more kids.
Right. Okay, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm. At Taft, we cultivate a highly respectful, transparent workplace that fosters creativity, teamwork, inclusion, and diversity. We couple our culture with a client-first approach, rewarding lawyers who understand their clients' goals and work to deliver success. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
Spring is coming, and that means it's time to bring your backyard back to life. At Indie Grills, we design and build custom outdoor living spaces that turn your patio into the best room of the house. From stamped concrete patios to cozy outdoor fireplaces to fully custom outdoor kitchens built for grilling, gathering, and entertaining, we do it all. We handle everything from design to build, and we're known for doing it one way. Built fast, built right, on time, and on budget. So before summer fills up, start now. Visit IndieGrills.com and schedule your outdoor living consultation today. Indie Grills. This is where spring begins.
All right, we're back with this week's episode of the IBJ Podcast. In my interview with David Harris about Christel House International's push to expand its network of schools around the world. I had to do a little bit of research into the foundation. The IRS has a bunch of figures, at least not recent figures, but relatively recent figures. I mean, is it still in the ballpark to say it's in the high 9 figures?
I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to give people a sense of...
And maybe I should just add.
Yeah, sure.
So the Endless Success Foundation is a separate organization from Christel House, although it was designed to support Christel House going forward, and we work very closely together. But there is separation, and that was done by design. Christel wanted there to be some accountability for the work that Christel House International does, and she was very wise to do that. So the exact numbers of in the Success Foundation corpus, I don't know.
Yeah, gotcha. But yeah, super significant.
Yes.
Yeah, high 9 figures. Yeah, I just want to give folks a sense of the financial scale of like the annual operations. Christel House International's total revenue for 2024 was about $40 million, and the total expenses were $27 million. Is that about where it is now?
So those numbers are accurate, except it doesn't reflect the funding needs of each individual school fully, because they are separate organizations and they raise additional funding.
Oh, I got you. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm the school in Bangalore, I would receive support from CHI, but also I would do fundraising locally.
Yes. And in fact, the school in Bangalore raises an enormous amount of money. They're very successful in fundraising. So those figures don't reflect the total cost of operating all of the 9 schools around the world.
Right.
Maybe one way to think about it is just kind of what's the cost per student. And it differs pretty significantly from country to country. So India is a little over $3,000. South Africa is closer to $5,000. Mexico's $6,000. Cost per student in Jamaica is actually even a little bit higher than that, largely because it's a new school and we don't have that many students. And then, of course, here in Indianapolis, the schools are public schools, so they get public funding. We provide a little support, but the vast, vast majority of their funding comes from the public sector.
So those numbers that I was quoting, it doesn't include all of the expenses, and it doesn't include all of the money that it takes to run the schools, or revenue that you would attract from running the schools or from donations.
Correct.
Okay. It's just what comes in and out of CHI.
Yeah.
Okay. So after Christel passed away, former Indianapolis Mayor Bart Peterson returned to the organization as its CEO in 2020. And then when did you join the organization?
So I joined the organization in August of 2021 and became the CEO in September of 2024.
Right. So the way I understand it, you quickly made expansion a priority. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What was the process of doing that within the organization?
So the first part of the process of expanding was to develop a plan. Historically, we expanded under Christel, and we went to places where she had relationships, and we were able to leverage those relationships to launch new schools, and we didn't have that anymore. So first, we looked at what do we think our capacity was to expand, and what additional resources did we need at Christel House International to grow, and then what opportunities were there to grow in countries where we're currently operating, and then what was the process that we were going to go through to select new countries to expand into. So we spent about a year developing the expansion plan that we've been operating under now for the last handful of years. And the expansion work is going really well, so we're very excited about where we are.
So this is really the first major global expansion of services since Christel passed away.
Correct.
In 2020. If we had to boil this down to like a 20-year plan, I don't know if you guys planned out that far. What would it look like? How many more students, for example, would you be serving?
So we're going to add about 7,000 additional students based on this specific plan, and we want to do both in-country expansion. So we are growing in countries we've been operating in for a while, Mexico, India, and South Africa, and then we wanted to expand into 2 new countries. This April, we will launch a new school in Pune, India. In June, we will launch a new school in Mumbai, India. In August, we will launch a new school in Mexico City. In January of 2027, we will start the first Christel House school in Colombia. And then in 2028, we will launch a new school in Nepal. So we've got a pretty aggressive expansion plan. And in addition to that, we are in the process of trying to finalize a spot for a second school in the Western Cape of South Africa. So somewhere probably pretty close to Cape Town, but it may not be in Cape Town.
Wow. So 3 countries in which you're already operating.
Yes.
India, South Africa, Mexico. You expand within those countries, but then adding 2.
Yes.
And how did you arrive at Nepal and Colombia?
So there's no magic formula for picking the new countries. There are a lot of different countries that we could go to. But we went through a pretty rigorous process of looking at a whole bunch of factors. First of all, of course, need was the big factor. But we also wanted to look, is it stable? Now, by definition, the countries we're going into are not going to be the most stable places. But we had a school in Venezuela that had to be closed when the Chavez government came into power because they were not welcoming of American organizations. We wanted to look at the legal structure, whether there was some philanthropic base that we could draw from to open schools. And we narrowed the number of countries that we were going to focus on down to 6 countries. And then we really wanted the best talent to drive where we would go. So we created what we called our Global Path Builders Fellowship, which is modeled after fellowships that the Mind Trust operated, which is the organization that I came from. And for the 2 spots that we were going to fill in the 6 countries that we were targeting, we got over 2,300 applications. So we got a huge response. And after a very rigorous process, selected 1 fellow in Nepal. But in the course of that fellowship process, we got connected with the Santo Domingo Foundation in Colombia. And they are a fabulous foundation that shared our commitment to investing in young people for the long haul to move them out of poverty for life, and along the way providing the supports that we provide, the nutrition, the healthcare, the social services support, the support to parents. So we actually didn't find a fellow in Colombia, but we formed a partnership with the Santo Domingo Foundation, and they have committed to funding 50-50 CapEx and OpEx funding in perpetuity with us. We've never had any relationship like that. It's just amazing. They're also just the loveliest people. And so we've formed this partnership with them. We actually just hired our first CEO for Colombia. So we're super excited about her. And we are going to we've never done this either. We're going to take over an existing school. It's on an island called Baru. It's technically part of Cartagena, but it is a separate island. It has a deep history. It is the place that African slaves would escape to. So there is a big population of descendants of Colombian slaves there that are very underserved by what is available to them. And so we are going to take over an existing school on this island and transition it into our first school in Colombia.
Man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, this is a big amount of work to to ingest.
Yeah.
I mean, for an organization that had sort of reached a certain level and had stayed there for a while. Does that mean just an awful lot more work for the people who work in Indianapolis for CHI? I mean, how do you handle all this new work? Said the guy who works in journalism.
That's a very good question. So the first thing we've done is we've added a lot of new people to the team.
Yeah.
So we've needed to add a lot of new people to the team, and we've added some really, really talented and terrific person. The woman who is leading our expansion work for us actually is based in Mumbai, India. So historically, we hired everybody who worked for Christel House International here from Indianapolis, but it's a different world now. It's the post-pandemic world. Remote work is very normal. And so we've now started hiring people from around the world. So we have 2 people who are based in India. We have 5 people based in South Africa. We have a woman who's based in Mexico City. We have someone in Colombia. We have someone who's in England who is South African and moved to England. And then we have people around the United States. So we've built out our team quite significantly. And we also have brought in just some great talent from around the world that has been really helpful in getting this work done well.
How many people work for CHI, and then how many of those are in Indianapolis?
So 34 people work for CHI, and about, I think, 18 of those are still in Indianapolis.
Okay, so about half are not.
Yeah. And I think as time passes, we're going to continue to hire more and more people from around the world. There's so many advantages. But as we do work in these countries, it's hugely helpful to have people who have a deep understanding of those countries. So we're just a better and smarter country, or we're a better and smarter organization because we have people from those countries that are part of our team, not just at the schools, but are on the Christel House International team. The schools, of course, are all staffed by people from those countries.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually get asked that question a lot. Are you going to bring in people to the United States to run the schools in Colombia or Nepal or any of these other places? We're like, oh, absolutely not. It's really important that the people from those countries are the ones that are leading those schools, staffing and leading those schools.
And then the mothership, if you will, is helping support them.
Yes.
As they
exactly
go about that. Yeah, I would think having feet on the ground is got to be a huge part of the mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it just gives us perspectives that we wouldn't have. And we've hired some amazingly talented people. And so this woman, Rena Mansukari, who works for us on our expansion work, is just this talent that she's just amazing. She's just amazing. I'm always telling people, gosh, you need amazing talent. Look at some of these countries where we operate in, because we've got some fabulous people.
So for the expansion projects and also the countries where you're just entering, do you have a basic timeline for when all of these projects will be finished, or when the schools will be operational?
Yeah, so it differs pretty significantly based on kind of the circumstances on the ground. The in-country expansion is easier and can go faster because we have talent on the ground to lead that work, and we have the infrastructure on the ground that we can use to leverage to launch these schools. So from the kind of beginning of the process of saying these schools raise their hand, I want to add another school, to when the school is opening is about 2 to 3 years. It's a little longer in the new countries, although in Colombia, because we have this partnership with the Santo Domingo Foundation, it's going much faster than we would have anticipated. One of the things that's great about this partnership with the Santo Domingo Foundation is not only are they bringing resources to the table, they're bringing an incredible amount of talent. They're an on-the-ground foundation that does amazing work. For example, they've got a team that does facilities work. So we're not having to do that by ourselves. We have experts on the ground in Colombia that we are working with to get this facility for this first new school built.
And in terms of how you are going to continually fund these operations, I mean, is that already covered? Does the do you feel confident that the money that your foundation throws off is going to be able just to make sure you can operate in perpetuity?
So we need to continue to raise money every year if we're going to be continue to operate these schools. What we do, though, is we do an analysis to make sure that the combination of the funding we get from the Endless Success Foundation and the funding that we feel like we can raise will be enough to keep these schools open in perpetuity. But if we didn't raise any additional funding, we would then have a problem.
Yeah.
But that's a big part of our analysis. And there are some places where we get some funding from the government as well. So that's hugely helpful. The reason that we're doing 2 schools this year in India rather than 1 is that the different governments in India came to us and offered us incredibly beautiful facilities at no cost to us. So the school in Pune is an interesting partnership between the municipal government there and the Fiat Corporation, and the school is being launched and built to honor the first female educator in India. So it's actually a beautiful piece of property, and the facility is gorgeous. And we went through a competitive process and were selected to run that school. And then another government came to us and I think had kind of heard about the due diligence that was done for us for this school in Pune and offered us a building in Mumbai. And we had kind of written Mumbai off as a city that would be just too expensive to ever acquire land in. It's like trying to acquire land in Midtown Manhattan or something like that. Literally, it's probably actually literally more, it might be even more expensive. It's just such a dense city, and it's the financial capital of India. But then we got this opportunity for no cost to get a land in a building. Now, it's a different kind of building than we normally have because it's more of a high rise, what you would expect in a big city. It was just too good of an opportunity to turn down. So between those 2 cities, that's about $15 million worth of land and buildings that we got from the government without having to put any money into that. So that means we can put more money into serving even more kids. And then in Jamaica, we get some pretty significant ongoing operating funding, and we've gotten funding for our facility down there. So the government there has been great. In other countries, we get less.
Okay. But on the fundraising trail, you come to me and say, Mason, we really could use some help with donations. And I say, well, I know you guys have this giant foundation. Why do you need my help? The answer is what?
The answer is that while Christel set us up in a very good position, there's a limit to even those resources, and we want to serve more kids. We want to be able to help as many kids out of poverty for life as we possibly can. We believe so deeply in this model. We're the only school network that we know of. I'll add that caveat. And I've said this a bunch of times and nobody has corrected me, but we're the only school network that we know of in the world that's with its students for the amount of time that we are with our students. It's very unusual or maybe completely unique. And we know that works. We see the results with our kids. I love to visit our schools. I love to visit with our families. I love to see our kids in classrooms. But what is most moving to me is spending time with our alumni, because you hear their stories about where they came from, and then you see where they are today. I was in India in July of last year and was meeting with a group of about 25 alumni, and this young woman who is a management consultant at a top firm in India was telling me the story about how her father died when she was 2 years old. She was enrolled in Christel House at 5 years old, and she was so excited because she'd never had another pair of clothes. And she was also excited because there was some color in her clothes. When she was 15, her mother died, so she was orphaned. And because Christel House provides all the supports, she was able to continue to stay on the path to be successful. And now this young woman who was born into incredible poverty is a successful person doing management consulting work. And so we just, that moves us, and we want to be able to serve as many kids as possible.
How much do you travel for this?
Well, maybe too much. I'm on the road an awful lot. Yeah. And part of that has been because we've been so aggressive in expansion. But my wife and I have this conversation. You and I were talking before we started about the fact that she is stopped teaching and is trying to figure out what her next move is. And what that has allowed her to do is actually spend some time traveling with me.
Oh, okay.
Which has made it a lot nicer.
Can I spend some time traveling with you as well?
Sure. I mean, in all seriousness, if anybody is ever interested in seeing one of these schools around the world, if they happen to be in one of those cities, if you're from our hometown, Christel's hometown, we would love to welcome you. It really is an amazing experience.
Wow. And looking further and further ahead, as far as you know, continued expansion, entering more countries.
So I think for right now, we will focus on the 7 countries that are our Christel House countries. So we do not have immediate plans to expand into new countries. And the kind of the level of growth at this point is something we're going to start a new strategic plan next year and figure out exactly how much more we're going to grow. Colombia is a very good opportunity for us to grow because of this partnership with the Santo Domingo Foundation. So we'll clearly do more schools there. India continues to just be an incredible opportunity for us to grow because of the support from government, but also is the country where we get our best fundraising support. And we'll look at other countries as well. We've had a little discussion about, do we grow more in the United States or not? Our focus has been on the international growth, and that really comes from our founder. That was what Christel was really focused on. She, of course, cared about the United States and cared deeply, as we all do, about our hometown of Indianapolis. But that's something we're also going to look at is, do we do more growth in the United States?
Great. Well, shoot, we're going to need to check in year or two.
Yeah.
And see how it's going.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for taking all this time to explain this to me. This is fascinating.
Mason, thanks so much. It's great to be with you. Nice to see you.
My thanks again to David Harris. And folks, before you get on with the rest of your week, there are a few stories in this week's edition of IBJ that I want to draw to your attention. First up, in 2024, the city of Indianapolis obtained the 15-acre site on the Near East Side that formerly housed the Indiana Women's Prison. Taylor Wooten reports that many questions remain about how it should be redeveloped. Also in this week's issue, Dave Lindquist goes behind the scenes of the decision to create a new restaurant in place of the highly regarded Milk Tooth in Fletcher Place. And Daniel Bradley tracks the rise in stock price and revenue for Indianapolis-based Elanco Animal Health. And again, you can find these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or online at IBJ.com. And I will say, it is quite a bit easier to access all the latest business news and all of IBJ's data on Central Indiana's business community and economy if you're a subscriber. We're running a promotion right now that gives you complete access for $1 per week for 3 months, just to get a sense of how valuable and original our content is. Just go to IBJ.com and click on the subscribe button. And thanks again making time this week for the IBJ podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.
Get a behind-the-scenes look at Indiana's most influential leaders. On Business and Beyond, we go beyond titles and resumes to explore the personal stories, pivotal moments, and hard-won lessons that shape Hoosier leadership. Hear from the people driving Indiana forward in their own words. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcast or at ibjpodcasts.com.
The IBJ Media Podcast Network is the soundtrack of a growing state. Indiana is on the move, and you can hear it happening on the IBJ Media Podcast Network. We bring you the voices at the center of our economy, our courts, our companies, and our communities. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation that's building Indiana's future. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.